Well, hello and welcome to today's Confessions of a Global Changemaker show. Oh, wow. I have a fellow awakening giant with me this evening. As you can see, this beautiful lady on screen. She's coming to us live from Idaho today. And it gives me so much pleasure to introduce you to this lady because she's been part of the Awakening Giants docu-series that you might have heard me talk about. I mean, I was filmed for it a couple of years ago. I think Janelle was filmed for it last year in New Zealand. And so, we've been on all these different location shoots, but we have never actually met each other live in person. So this is the very first time that we're actually talking, and you get to experience this live as part of this Changemakers show. Now, Janelle is described as funny, kind, and unstoppable. She has an incredible system that I want to dig into a little bit further as we go through today's show, which is called Value Impact. So I want to get behind what that means. But first of all, Janelle, welcome to the show. Hello from Idaho.
Hello. Thank you. Well, I'm coming to you live from Idaho in Northwest United States.
I know. How cool is this that you and I get to be in two totally different locations? I'm on a boat in the UK and you're over in Idaho, and we get to communicate. I mean, guys and girls, come and say hello to the amazing Janelle Anderson. Now, Janelle, you've been part of the Awakening Giants TV series as well, which is launching this year. I'm very excited that we're starting to ramp up. Guys and girls, you'll start to see some promotion for this docu-series that is coming out over the next few months. We've got a soft launch that's happening towards the end of April. I've heard a little nerdy whisper that we've got some exciting stuff coming out. So do look out for that. Janelle, what's been your journey? What led you to knowing that you were a change maker? Did you wake up one day and thought, I'm a change maker? How did you know? When did you know?
Well, that is kind of funny. I think deep down, even as a youth, as a child in school, you just kind of know when you see things a little differently. I've always been very protective of the underdog, a champion of fairness and justice, and that we're all okay and that we can all do this together. That didn't really go over well on the playground sometimes, when the mean girls want to do one thing and the other group want to do another thing. And so I just sort of realized over the years that just simmered inside me. And fast forward to being an adult in my 40s, after having spent years serving and helping people, talking people off the ledge in their business transactions. And I found myself, now you have to picture this because it's totally legit and I'm going to be real with you, standing in the mountains in Idaho a couple of years ago, knowing that I had this nugget, knowing that I had this thing. I'm having a full-on temper tantrum in the woods, stomping in the snow, arms crossed, shaking my fist at God. I don't want this to be my thing. That is not my thing. I'm not doing it. Yeah, that didn't go over well. It was like, are you done? Okay. And then that settling, that calm and honor to realize that, oh my gosh, I really do have this. I have to take this to the world. It is not an option to put this on a shelf or to bury it. I have to impact the world through this message. And so that's what I've been doing for the last several years.
So how many of you have had that experience? Come and talk to us in the comments, right? How many of you have had that experience where you've just felt there was a bigger divine purpose for you, and no matter how much you try and go against it, no matter how much you avoid it, no matter how much you procrastinate on it, still keeps biting you in the ass until so many things happen and you're like, oh, for God's sake, why does it always happen to me? But it's the universe, God, or source, whatever it is, just letting you know that the path you're on is all very nice, but that's really not why you're here. So, and so you've had several things, Janelle, that have happened to you. I mean, I was quite surprised when you sent me your little bio piece that guys and girls, if you read that, the description with the video today, so I'm picturing the whole Twin Towers thing happening. So life is shattering all around the world. We're all watching this destruction of humanity, and Yeah, there you are. And I'm picturing this scene. There you are, and your boyfriend phones his girlfriend.
Yeah, my husband.
Sure she knows what's going on. I mean, like,
right.
You're gonna have
Yeah,
to
that's
do that.
so I was on the West Coast at the time, so it was very early in the morning. I get a phone call from a family member. Oh my gosh, you have to wake up. The United States is under attack. So I'm out of bed going, what? Wait, what? What was happening? Get up, go into the living room, turn on the TV, and you're just watching this, and you're just standing there in paralyzed, in shock and awe. And he comes into the living room and we're watching this, and he's standing. My husband is standing right next to me.
Not just your boyfriend. You're actually married.
Oh, no. This was my husband standing in our home, and got his phone out and called and woke her up and wanted to talk to her and make sure she knew what was going on and that she was okay and not too upset and so on and so forth. And I mean, I knew there was something going on between these two. I knew this person, she'd been in our home.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I kept telling him this behavior, this thing you're doing, even though you don't want to call it what it is, doesn't, if it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, right? And so here I am watching this horrific, world-changing, life-altering tragedy unfold, and I'm watching these buildings come down right as I'm standing there knowing and watching my marriage come down at the same time.
Fuck. Like,
yeah.
I mean, wow.
Yeah.
Nikki, Tia, Simon, just want to say hello and acknowledge that you're here. And guys and girls, those of you that are watching, if you just heard that story, I mean, there are some pretty significant life events that can happen to us, and there are significant events that happen through us. But for that to happen in that moment, I mean, what happened next? Like, how do you even deal with something like that?
Yeah, so my life had been fairly normal, whatever that means. I married the college sweetheart. I had all the thing and the deals and the car and the house. And we were actually even at that same time attempting to get pregnant. We'd been to the doctors. I was on the vitamins, the whole thing going on. So I'm building this life. This is my moment. This is where we're going. And after that, so that was September 11th. It's like we're in super, super deep crap here. And we're going to need some serious help. This had been the first big issue in our marriage. And I thought, well, roll up the sleeves. Here we go. We knew this was going to happen. This is what life does. There's always mountains and peaks and valleys. So I was ready to roll up the sleeves and, okay, this is our first challenge. Let's do this. Yeah, that didn't happen so much. I was the only one doing any of the work. So there was, separation, moving out, years of counseling, therapy, all kinds of stuff. And then I realized towards the end, I found out by accident that this was like the first near-death experience I had, because I almost dropped dead at work from the shock. I found an address on a piece of paper that we were doing for our taxes, our income taxes. And I thought, well, what the hell address is that? Where is he now? What is he doing? And I look it up, and I remember so clearly, because I'm in the real estate business. So I'm standing in customer service, and they pull up this deed, and I'm like, where is this property at? And I see her name. And the blackness, I just remember putting my hand on the wall and saying, please, God, don't let me drop dead in customer service. I don't remember anything else. But what was happening, he was actually going to marriage counseling with me while secretly living with his mistress. Wonder why that counseling didn't work, huh?
It takes a lot for me to be lost for words, but I am lost for words that somebody, how does a human being do that? How do they live life so normally with one person? I mean, this happens all the time, I'm sure. Like, how many of you know somebody that's had a double life? I mean, if you think, I know several people actually where it's come out where there's been this double life. Debbie Moore, one of our fellow Awakening Giants, she was living with somebody who was also having a double life. I mean, this is apparently more common than we know. So
yeah, it was, you can't imagine that people would actually do that. But see, it was all for the best. I am so grateful because here's what really happened. I thought that the 5 year whatever shit show that was of me trying to save my marriage, wearing my wedding ring, not going on dates. I mean, there were already 3 of us in this marriage. We didn't need any more applicants. So after I got to the point where, you know what, I'm done. Like, I'm released of this. In my conscience, I've done everything that I could humanly possible. And having a clear conscience is an emotional currency that is so profound and so valuable. So when I got through that, I thought, oh, look at me. I'm like a rock star. I survived this. What's next, world? That was a bad question. I should not have said that to myself or to the universe out loud. Because what that 5 year was, truly was, get ready, Janelle. Get ready. Toughen up, girl. Here it comes. You are going to take a path that on the other side of that, when you come out of it, you are going to have your life purpose in your hand. Now, if I had known that going into the path, I would have said, cool, let's just go and get out the other side. I wouldn't have experienced the journey through the next 10 years. So it was a total of 16 years. Marriage gone, kids gone, job, mom died, dad lost his mind, sister-in-law dropped dead, moved out of state, lost a job, lost my health, lost my money, lost my reputation, even the dog died.
Oh.
And that's the short version. So, and so when you come through something like that, people just look at you and go, how are you not like living on a farm somewhere in your bathrobe, eating pudding, like, you know?
Well, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, we're coming up to Mental Health Week. And so, if you think about how many people who go through a lot less than that take their lives or have their life taken,
Yes.
or submit to all of that instead of thinking, no, you know what? You gave me the fucking test. I'm not going anywhere. You can test me. You can push me. You can crush me. You can do whatever you want. But I am here to serve my purpose. Don't know what it is yet, maybe, but I'm here to serve it. And whilst ever I keep putting one foot in front of the other, that purpose is going to keep getting closer to me. Simon Ben, he says, reveals how strong you are. So you've come through all of that. You're like 16 years later, you're through the other side. Yep. Here you are on Awakening Giants, and God bless, I get to meet another soul sister. So you're on Awakening Giants and you go over to New Zealand, and you said that you had like a life-changing experience. I mean, I know I did, and I was on 2 of the docuseries shoots in San Diego and Ecuador, and it was life-changing for me, and even one drop came out of all of that, and there's so much stuff that's happened as a result of being part of that was simmering away, and it just needed airtime. It just needed a place to be able to incubate. So tell us about your experience. What happened in New Zealand? Like, share with us some things that you've not told anybody before. Let's get some down and dirty stuff.
It's getting down and dirty. Well, first of all, I hadn't taken a vacation in 12 years.
Gosh, you were a little bit ready for
that. That's the first part of the problem.
And so when I went down there, vacation is like, guys and girls, let me just set the scene here. So they took 100 global change makers and divided us across 5 locations, put us under an insane amount of pressure to see what does a real leader do under stress and pressure and under the most horrendous circumstances, really, on a daily basis. There's not the sort of stuff that you'd go through usually. Put you under that and like squeeze you as hard as they can to see what happens, right? I would hardly call that a vacation. Just wanted to drop that little side note in there. But I guess compared to what you've been through, that was a very good vacation.
Bring it on. I got this.
Yeah. So, oh my God. Yeah. Tell us what happened.
Well, one of the questions that they asked, did you know, when you're going through the interview process, they said, well, what scares you? Like, where's your fear? And I told the producers, I said, fear and I are no longer in relationship. Let that sink in.
I like that.
Fear and I are no longer in a relationship. Now, how did I get to that space? Because they were like, what? When you have survived your worst nightmares over and 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 over, fear no longer has a footing. It doesn't have a place to stand in my life. Now, I'm not saying things don't come up where I'm like, oh, okay, I'm feeling the feels here. You can still feel it, but it doesn't take over. It doesn't manipulate. It doesn't make your decisions for you. It doesn't run your life. I feel the feels. I say, oh, there that is. Fear. No, you need to go over there. Like, nope, you're not welcome here. So that was an interesting thing to go to New Zealand, because they're like, well, how do we push her? And I thought, well, that's a good question for me too. I don't know. But what happened when we got into the sacred space with the Waitaha, I had an experience where I was able to unload a grief anchor that at the time I thought I'd been crafting this for 11 years. I'd been crafting this since my mom died in 2007. What the real truth was, I had been building and forging that grief anchor for 35 years. And then I picked it up and I carried it for 11. I was what I call a functional griever. I was getting up, living my life, doing all the things and the deals, but there was a piece of my soul that was not present. It was not alive. See, what I didn't tell you is during that whole 16-year storm shit show thing, my mom had been critically and terminally ill since I was born. Actually, since I was adopted. So I grew up waiting every day for death to arrive at our doorstep and take my mom. That's where I think a lot of that positivity and you cannot break me strength came from. Because when the most important person in your life is a child, you know, could potentially leave you at any minute, that's some heavy shit. Like, that's way too much for a kid to deal with. But I wouldn't undo it because it made me who I am. I really am the goddess of positivity. That's actually one of my alternate, and yes, I do have a goddess costume, and if you go on my website, you'll see it. But when I was in New Zealand, to understand that that was part of my life purpose, to experience life with a parent, to have that significant bond, and the realization that at any minute that bond could come apart, and your world could come apart, and your future and your hopes and your dreams and everything, it changes how you look at things. But what I do now with that is that's how I approach business. That's how I approach relationships. That's how I approach helping people. It's okay to have things come apart. You will survive. You will get through it. If you're willing to learn, if you're willing to dig and get those nuggets out of there, that's where the profound aha, divine downloads come from. You got to work for it. You got to dig in. They're not just going to serve it up to you like it's Burger King and have it your way. How bad do you want it? How deep are you willing to dig for it? Because if you do the work, you are guaranteed success. I've never seen anyone go through this process, do the work, dig for the nuggets, and not be profoundly changed. I guarantee
it. I mean, you've got to be willing to go deep on something like this, because especially, I mean, if we go back to Awakening Giants for a moment, if you think about, you know, you're not just there on your own going through this experience. This isn't like a personal development, mentoring or coaching session, you know, a deep dive one-to-one. There's like 20 of you witnessing every fear, every fuck up, every failure, like everything that you go through. You know, I mean, I had something happen to me in my first one, and I've talked about it before. I won't talk about it here, but I was totally confronted by something that would never usually get me, that I've done with my family a million times, yet in front of a group of change makers who, you know, like my fear confronted me, and the fear of failure and the fear of being seen and the fear of judgment, and like all my shit showed up totally in that moment, right? And so these things, like if the shit is there, it's gonna come up at some point, just letting you know.
It will. But
You
see,
can't run away.
when does it come up? When it comes knocking on your door and says, "Hey, shit delivery, here we go."
Yes.
You know, it's coming up to the surface because it wants out of you. It wants to get out. You weren't meant to hold on to that. You weren't meant to hold on to judgment and fear and anger and bitterness and resentment and shame and grief. Those are supposed to be pieces of your life journey. We're all going to feel all the things, but you can't take one thing and put that like a crown on your head as your identity. People, I keep telling people, they don't want to hear your victim story. They want to hear your victory story. Yeah. But if you can't take that badge off that says, well, this happened to me, or, well, I did this, or, well, there was that one time in high school where I got abandoned at prom, and it becomes your identity, I mean, you got a big ass problem, because that is not who you are. And this is what I talk about in the value impact. If you have taken your value as a human being and you have attached it to some external label or identity, your victimology, your job, your relationship, your appearance, what football team you root for, or should I say rugby? It doesn't matter. If you strip it all away, where's your value? And I have some people go, oh, shit. And they're looking around like, I don't know. Really? You don't know? You should know. You should know. And so this is what I tell people. Your value is not because of. It just is. It just is. And it's so easy to go through this process, to have that aha moment where you're still going to do the job. You're still going to have relationships. Life is still going to be lifey, and people are going to be very people-y. But when changes come and go and the highs and lows, if your value isn't attached to that or the outcome, whoo, sit back, relax, enjoy the ride. And that is so profound in business. I watch business people and teams that I talk to. They're so hung up on the outcome. And I'm like, well, what happens if you fail? And they're like, oh, well, that's not going to happen. I'm like, but why not? What if it does? And then they look at me like I have three heads. But Janelle, it's business. There can't be any failure. How many times did Thomas Edison fail? How many boats did Columbus sail before he crossed the Atlantic? I mean, failure is inevitable, people. Make friends with it. Learn how to learn from it. Don't let it move into your life and set up camp and destroy your entire self-worth. Let it pass on through and be like, what's up, failure? Cool. All right. Thanks for the lesson. Bye-bye. See you later. But they don't. They're so worried it's going to show up that it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And then when it does show up, they roll out the red carpet and let it move into the guest room. Don't do that. Don't do that.
If you go back to, I mean, let's talk about the white to heart for a moment. I don't know how many of you know about the white to heart. I mean, I was gutted that I think we were launching Brand Builders Club in New York at the same time that you guys were all filming New Zealand. The white to heart tribe, it is elders. It's a whole community of elders, and you know, they are one of the only tribes left of their origin. And I think was it in New Zealand that you were like out in the bush of New Zealand, weren't you?
We were in I would say like the north central part of the North Island. I mean, the Waitaha tribe, is part of the indigenous culture of New Zealand. So don't misunderstand. We're not like, living in tents in the jungle, wearing loincloths and having no running water. it was not that. That's a whole different show, okay? But yes, it's a group of elders, matriarchal society. One of their chief elders, though, is Taporoho. We call him Papa, who will be deeply in my heart for the rest of my life. That man changed my life. That encounter changed me, because that's where I was able to unload that grief with my mom and understand the purpose of it all. And when you can understand the purpose, it's like freedom. And that, I didn't know truly what I was in for with this Awakening Giants New Zealand. When it first came to me, I thought, oh, that's like over my head. Like, I'm not at that level. Like, I don't play on that. Like, those people are like, whoa. And all of a sudden, that voice in my head is like, really, Janelle? Really? Do you want it? Well, yeah. And all of a sudden, it was like, yeah. It's on, bitches! Like, I did the interview with Sprite, so I'm all set up. I've got this hour-long interview. She's in Ecuador. I'm in the U.S. And I'm like, okay, God, if this is meant to be, you'll make it happen. If you want it for me, if this is part of my purpose in life journey, I'm down with that. We'll do it. If you got somewhere else for me to be, that's cool too. Please send me an email and tell me what the hell we're doing. By the way, God does not use email, I've discovered. So that didn't happen. Halfway through the interview, Sprite's like, yeah, we got to have you. And I'm just oh my God, that moment of recognizing that I've been chosen, not just because it's a TV show and it's a trip, but that aha moment of, this is part of my purpose. I've been chosen to do this.
Yeah.
You kind of go, oh my God. And that connection to that higher purpose. So again, that's where fear doesn't get a foothold in your life. God, that is so freeing. I want to shout that from the rooftops. Hi. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Fear and I broke up. Yeah. Fear was a total douche, so I kicked him out. He ate my chips, he snores, and Fear is an asshole, so I broke up with him.
Or her, if it's our male listeners this evening. Janelle.
And if it's the males, and if Fear's being a total bitch to you, break up with her.
I'm gutted that you and I weren't on location together. I fear that we would have been quite some trouble had we been in the same location. So I think, God, the universe, spirit did a good thing keeping us separate for a while, but I have a feeling that that's not going to happen for a lot longer.
I know. All of a sudden, I sense a disturbance in the force. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about value impact, because the value impact is a system, it's a process, it's a blueprint that you have created that supports others to feel this fucking relentless where it comes to life, where it comes to relationships, where it comes to business. And this is your message for Awakening Giants. This is your message for the world. I love that you're the goddess of positivity. I think that's a brilliant part of the fame name, definitely. So talk to us a bit more about the value impact. Like, how does that, what would somebody be going through that the value impact can totally transform and turn that around?
Well, okay, so let's back up real quick. So remember that 16 years where I lost all my identities? I'm not a wife, I'm not a daughter, I'm not an employee, I'm not a corporate, I'm not all the things. When I came out the other side of that, and people were like, damn, girl, I kept getting asked this question. How are you okay? Like, I even talked to therapists and psychiatrists, psychologists, and they're like, it's a statistical anomaly that you went through all of these things, all 5 major life stressors. Just tight little 16-year package. As the goddess of positivity, I chalk that up to efficiency, that I got all the shit done in 16 years.
I'm really efficient.
Yeah, I'm very efficient that way. I'm like spreadsheets and all. But I kept getting asked that question. why are people asking me, how am I okay? Like, am I missing something? Like, what's going on? And in that research, and I started watching people that lost the same pieces of their identity, their marriage, not going to have kids, jobs, relationships, family members, moving. And I started watching. And then I realized there's some people that, yes, they process the change, they process the loss, the evolution, but it's like a burr under their saddle. They just can't quite seem to get past it. Years later, it's still like, just, and I'm going, And that's when I realized I was a little bit different. There's a shock, right? Janelle's different than everybody else. I had never attached my value to any of those external identities. So even though I went through the process and I feel the feels, it didn't destroy me on a soul and subconscious level. And that's where I started crafting this out of. So what I do is I have a process where I go through, and first of all is I help you identify where have you taken your value that is supposed to be internal and eternal. Where'd you put it? How'd it get there? Was it a cultural thing, a family thing, a societal thing? Was there an incident that somehow you felt like your value got taken from you and it got permanently affixed to that? And I help you unwind that. I help you take it all back. And that's where you get the sit back and the freedom. You still have to have a job. You're still going to have to participate in relationships. You're still going to have to do all the thing and the deals. But when your value has not been sacrificed on the altar of your job or your relationships or your appearance or your money or your religion, which side of the aisle you vote on, none of that, you start to see things a little differently and you start to interact with other people very differently. Because if I know my value just is, and it's a universal truth, now I have to start applying that universal truth to everybody I come in contact with. When I see someone coming at me from their place of trying to be powerful or manipulate, if they can only talk about their money, they can only talk about their job, they can only talk about their kids, they can only talk about their spouse, they can only talk about their appearance, that's a sign right there. They have attached their value to that subject matter. So now I get to see it and go, oh my God, they have no idea that their value has nothing to do with any of that. And so now where it would have come at me before and said, you're pissing me off. That shit hurts. Stop it. Now I go, oh, now I have compassion for them. I'm able to peek over the fence of the facades and the smoke and the mirrors that they put out and look over and see a human being who's just as scared, just as hurt, just as wanting, just as needing, who's looking for love. My superpower is love. I can love anybody. I don't know why God wired me up that way. I'll have a conversation with him about that someday, but I can. I just do. And people say, but Janelle, I am the best ditch digger in the world. I have the medal, I have the plaque, I have the bumper sticker. I was even on the cover of Ditch Digger magazine. That's great. When your job gets outsourced to another country or a piece of technology takes over and you can no longer execute your skills, talents, and gifts that are valuable, where's your value? And people go, oh shit. Because remember, you have value, who you are as a living, breathing human being. It just is. Valuable, those are your skills, talents, and gifts that you execute in your relationships, in your jobs, and out in the world. And your values are the things that you believe in your soul that help you make the decisions in your life that guide you along the way. So they're three very separate things. But that's not what Cosmo magazine tells you. Cosmo says, oh, you got to look like this, you got to dress like that, you got to have this phone, you got to drive this car, you got to be in this relationship, you got to do this, sit down, stand up, fight, fight, fight. And I'm over it. I'm over it. I am over people killing themselves because of it. I am over people crying and not feeling that they have any purpose in life, that they just don't know how to go with the flow. Don't go with the flow. Do your own flow. Nobody said you had to go. Well, yeah, the world said, Facebook said, Twitter said, TikTok said. I want Facebook to shut the fuck up, because this is not how we were meant to live. Do you want to know how I can prove it to you? You ready?
Go on.
Put your arms out. Now imagine a baby, a brand new tiny human. Instantly, the original wiring in your brain and your heart activate. You know that that baby has value, and you put zero expectations on what damn college it's going to go to. Mm-hmm. You don't think about what car it's going to drive. You don't think about who it's going to marry, what it's going to wear, who it's going to like. That ancient, true, primal, internal and eternal wiring instantly activates, because you know that baby has value. Here's where it gets wonky. About 12 to 18 months, when they start interacting and they start self-actualizing, and then they get into preschool, we've already set them up to be jockeying for position in the plane of value based on accomplishment or status. Well, little Timmy said his first word by this age. Oh, that's so precious. Well, little Jane said her first word and started walking by this age. Then they get into school, and what do? You accomplish something great, we give you a gold star. We give you a grade. I'm not saying that that's the problem, but we don't equip any of our humans with the mechanism to say you are more than your accomplishments. Your accomplishments may dictate where you live, who you interact with, and what kind of job you have, and the lifestyle you lead, but your lifestyle has nothing to do with your value. I need to skywrite this across the planet so people will stop hurting.
This is a great point. You know, guys and girls watching this now, like, what do you think? What do you think that our education system is doing to our kids? I know that Simon and Tia, who are watching this now, they are very much in that space of supporting children and young adults to go on and do the very things that they were born to do. And there's definitely a connection between the three of you, I think. But let's just dig in as we start to come to as we start to wrap up this interview, because I could talk to you forever about this, and this is something that I think at some point we probably will. But we
haven't even talked about wine or milk duds yet, so you know.
So this is Confessions of a Global Changemaker after all. So what would be one confession that you don't really tell people about something that you've been through, where you would, I mean, you've shared a lot tonight for sure, but is there something that that actually you don't really talk about or haven't talked about where it comes to business or relationships, where you think, actually, you know, I would never want anyone else to ever go through that thing? Like, is there something, if you dig a little deep, is there something that you have there to share?
When it comes to business, so I have lots of businesses. I am a real estate professional, so I'm bound by geography to the state of Idaho in the United States. My speaking platform, international, the cooking shows, and all my other soul adventures, anywhere. But for me in business, and when I see young real estate agents coming on, fear and failure are cousins, but they're not your family. And what was really, really hard for me, I was in this industry for many years. My parents were real estate brokers, so I'm second generation. And when I moved to Idaho and I got back in this industry, no plans to, it just fell in my lap. I felt a lot of pressure to live up to the Anderson name. I was wondering if I could do it as good as they did it. What would happen if I didn't? What would my dad think? What would it look like when you have this legacy of these super award-winning, spectacular business professionals in their field, and you come along as their daughter and you can't meet those expectations? Yeah, that I'm confessing that I had those thoughts. It super sucked. What if I put all my eggs in this basket and it fails? What if? I hate that goddamn question. And then I turn around and I fall in love with it at the same time, because I had to learn, what if I fail? Shit. What if I can't make my house payment? What if I never find Captain Awesome? What if I never do anything with my life purpose? But then, what if I do? What if I do crush this? What does that look like? What if I do find Captain Awesome? What if I could take this message to the world? And that was a hard mind shift, even for the goddess of positivity, because I had just come out of 16 years of things getting stripped away from me. That I was 16 years in survival mode, had a profound effect on my health. And it was hard. It was hard to get out of waiting for the next shoe to drop, constantly waiting for the next stripping away, the next loss, the next devastation. And where I realized I'd turn a corner was a family member here in Idaho, some of the family that I even moved here to be with. Like, they were why I showed up here. Just, I don't know, lost their mind, started spewing ridiculous, crazy lies about me. I mean, God, I wish I had some of those powers. She says I have. That'd be kind of cool. And what would have made me crawl into a hole for 2 days and cry, because that used to be what happened when I would have any fear of rejection or abandonment. I would literally just crawl in a hole and cry, not eat, and just be in the soup for days. And then the goddess of positivity would show up, and I'd pull myself up, because there was nobody else around that was going to do it. It's always been all Janelle all the time. And I'd pull myself up. And in 2017, there was an incident where this person just went onto Facebook and just vomited all over Facebook these horrific things about me. I mean, they were literally just made up out of thin air. And I looked at it and I went, whatever. I erased it. It's like, whatever. And then about a day later, I was like, well, that's interesting. She just totally publicly lambasted me, put a big neon sign up of, we reject you, you piece of shit. We hate you, blah, 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 blah. And I didn't have the same reaction. What just happened? How did I get to this space? And that's when I knew the storm was over. That was the other side. It never happened like that before, because I took everything so personally. I wanted everyone to like me. I wanted to be everyone's friends. I wanted to be chosen. I just wanted to be let in. And finally, can you handle it, Janelle? Can you take it? Can you take it? And I finally stood up and said, no more.
Yeah.
This storm has served its purpose. It's done. I am taking my lessons. I'm standing up, and I am unstoppable. Get out of my way. And then it was only a couple months later where I had the temper tantrum in the woods, where God downloaded my divine purpose, and I went, I don't want to. And he's like, you're going to do it anyway. I said, okay. But whatever storm you're in, whether it's a relationship, whether it's business, spiritual, financial, let it flow. Be in it. Because I promise you, there is another side. I hope and I pray that you don't have to go through a 16-year life and soul stripping storm like I did. But I wouldn't have the experience, and I wouldn't have the message, and I wouldn't be the goddess of positivity if I hadn't. So just know, while you're sitting in the storm, it's just like a giant waiting room. You're going to get through this. They're eventually going to call your name, and you're going to get out of here. You will.
I love that visual. Like, how many of you are visual like me? Like, I can literally picture that happening right there. Janelle, thank you so much for your time today. I'm just gutted that we're at the end of the show today. I definitely want to be following your journey and hearing a lot more about what happened next. Like, we want Janelle back on the show, right, guys and girls? This would be just so fun. And I don't know if you're around from the 4th to the 7th of December, but we're holding a big Changemakers conference in Miami. So it would be so awesome for you to be there. There's quite a few people that watch the show that are going to be there. And
yeah, I think we can make that happen.
Yeah, that would be great to have you there. Yeah, you've got a story.
I need to shout it. I just have to shout it from the rooftops. And just remember, just repeat this to yourself the rest of the day and tomorrow. Write it on your bathroom mirror in a marker. Your value is not because of, it just is. It's great news.
I'll put that as a little banner there. Fabulous. Thank you so much. And from one fellow awakening giant to another, from the bottom of my heart to yours, I just want to thank you for showing up, for me, showing up for everybody here, and showing up for you, and standing in your true full brand, your full capacity to really build that brand you want to see in the world. And by being, other people will start to take that on. I think, you know, with your infectious positivity, how could anybody be around you and not be infected in a positive way by that? So you just make sure you keep shining that light, girl, because you're on it. You're absolutely on it, smashing it.
God willing, and the creek don't rise.
Well, I look forward to watching your journey. You did share with me your website earlier, and Janelle said if you want to go and find out more about the value impact that she was talking about earlier, her website is JanelleAndersonLife.com. So do go and check that out. Subscribe, because I'm sure there's some great stuff that you send out to everybody, Janelle. And have you got anything coming up this year? Anything in between now and when we hopefully see you in Miami? What else have you got coming up?
Oh, I'll be speaking at the Women Ignite International Conference in October. That's going to be here in Boise, Idaho. Okay. We'll also be filming more Awakening Giants in 4 more countries, and I'll be doing the entire show, all the locations. So
I'm thinking
that's going to be super cool.
I'm thinking about
and then,
that.
Of course, it's real estate 24/7 here in Idaho. We're one of the fastest growing communities in the United States. So.
Wow. You got a little bit on your hands then.
I'm never bored. Never bored.
I'm sure. And has Mr. Fantastic arrived yet? Are we still waiting for him to show up?
There's a gentleman that is currently in the application process for Captain Awesome, and he's doing pretty good.
I think we better bet him first, don't you, boys and girls? I think she's done good enough. He needs to send his application in to us. We'll do all of that background checking.
That would be great. And I told him, I said, when we started dating, I said, just so you know, you officially signed a waiver for my stand-up comedy shows because you're just full of content. And he's like, oh God. And he'll do something and then look at me and go, is that going to end up in the comedy? Yeah, babe. It is.
Get used to it. Oh my dear. Well, I am sending you big love to Idaho, guys and girls. Thank you so much for showing up and for being part of today's show. We are back tomorrow. Who have I got on tomorrow? Let me just go check and see. We have the amazing Angie Reed, another fellowing awakening giant. Angie Reed is one of our Brand Builders Club members in Atlanta. She supported with launching the Brand Builders Club in Atlanta. She's the relationship manager for Brand Builders Club in Atlanta. So you're going to hear about Angie and the amazing transformational work that she does. She did some incredible body work on me when we were out filming in Ecuador, and that was the first time I ever met Angie, and Angie has gone on to do so much stuff. My whole family have been to Angie for treatments. We flew over to Atlanta to be treated by Angie. She's worth traveling for. I mean, she literally, her hands are magic. But how do you replicate that? Like when you're the one that has this magic, how do you turn that into something that you can deliver in a global way? We're going to be sharing that tomorrow with our next show. Janelle, thank you so much for your time. Thank you guys and girls. Have an amazing evening or day, evening, afternoon, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. I'm sending you loads of love, and we will see you back here, same time, same place tomorrow for the next show. Mwah! See you later.